Hello, my name is Mary Ann Dyer, and I'm Program Director of Adult Redeploy Illinois at the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority.
Hello, my name is Stacy Woods, and I am the Program Manager of Adult Redeploy Illinois with the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority.
We are here to provide this technical assistance for potential applicants to the State Fiscal Year 21 Notice of Funding Opportunity for Adult Redeploy Illinois Program Implementation Grants. As we go through this recording, we may use several acronyms, namely ARI, which is for Adult Redeploy Illinois, CRA, which is the Crime Reduction Act, GATA, which is the Grants Accountability and Transparency Act, CJA, which is the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority, IDOC, the Illinois Department of Corrections, and NOFO, which is the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Today we'll be going over the purpose and scope of the NOFO, the goals and key components of ARI, the application and review process and timeline, and where you can go for more information. So the purpose of this Adult Redeploy Illinois Notice of Funding Opportunity is to provide implementation grants to local jurisdictions to create or expand a process to assess individuals and provide a continuum of evidence-based sanctions and treatment alternatives for those who would be incarcerated if those local services and sanctions did not exist. The results expected from Adult Redeploy Illinois and this NOFO include reduced prison admissions, lowered costs to taxpayers, and an end to the expensive and ineffective cycle of crime and incarceration. So Adult Redeploy Illinois, ARI, was established by the Illinois Crime Reduction Act of 2009. The Crime Reduction Act was part of a package of legislation that was designed to improve the operation and outcomes of the justice system, based on the growing body of research about what works in reducing recidivism. It had a focus on risk, assets, and needs assessment, evidence-based practices, and performance measurement. The creation of Adult Redeploy Illinois in particular was to increase public safety by working directly with local jurisdictions to decrease reliance on incarceration when less expensive and more effective alternatives exist in the community. In order to receive Adult Redeploy Illinois funding, interested jurisdictions must prepare a local plan for implementation. So essentially a mini strategic plan that demonstrates data-driven decision-making, multidisciplinary stakeholder engagement, and an understanding of gaps in local services and sanctions that need to be addressed, as well as community assets that can be leveraged in order to build a successful strategy to reduce recidivism by rehabilitating individuals and supporting their reintegration into the locality. Now, in exchange for funding, sites must agree to reduce by 25% the number of people they send to the Illinois Department of Corrections on probation-eligible offenses from a defined target population, or else face a possible penalty. Here are the goals of Adult Redeploy Illinois, which come from the Crime Reduction Act. ARI is modeled after a successful Juvenile Redeploy Illinois program that's been operating since 2005 out of the Department of Human Services and has managed to have a significant impact on a reduced Department of Juvenile Justice population. ARI is based on a national best practice called performance incentive funding because it uses state dollars to encourage local jurisdictions to invest in more effective and less expensive alternatives to incarceration. ARI also draws on concepts of justice reinvestment, using data to implement strategies intended to drive down costs and free up dollars for community-based programming. The key components of Adult Redeploy Illinois, as in the Crime Reduction Act, are assessment of risk, needs, and assets of individuals in the program, evidence-based and promising practices, and performance measurement and evaluation. All of these key components must be addressed in the application. Currently, Adult Redeploy Illinois operates in 25 sites, which are our grantees, that cover 44 counties and operate 50 diversion programs. These programs include problem-solving courts, specialized probation programs, and other system enhancements that are designed to reduce a jurisdiction's reliance on state prisons. So now for this funding opportunity. In state fiscal year 21, there are approximately $9 million available for ARI site grants. The estimated number of grants that will be awarded is approximately 30. The grants may range from $50,000 to $1 million for each grant. The award period is July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, which is the state fiscal year. Additional funding of up to 2 years may be available through this solicitation, contingent upon satisfactory performance and the availability of funds in future years. This is the first time that a competitive NOFO process has been applied to the entire Adult Redeploy Illinois network. The NOFO process is part of the Grants Accountability and Transparency Act, which was passed in 2014 to open up and level the playing field for those seeking state funding to provide vital services. This solicitation is open to county units of government or judicial circuits per the Crime Reduction Act. A county may submit on behalf of a group of counties or on behalf of a judicial circuit. Other units of local government, private agencies, or not-for-profit organizations are not eligible to apply themselves. However, they may work with an applicant jurisdiction to be included in the grant proposal as a subaward or subcontract for services or personnel. So the required elements related to this Notice of Funding Opportunity are an application in standard format using the Uniform Application for State Grant Assistance. That template is provided as part of the materials. A program narrative with clear and full responses to each section. And this is the equivalent of the local plan that was mentioned earlier as a mandate of the Crime Reduction Act. A budget and budget narrative using CJA's fillable Excel spreadsheets. And for Adult Redeploy Illinois NOFO, also a logic model for the program and letters of support. So as mentioned, the program narrative and answers to all the questions in the sections will constitute the local plan for Adult Redeploy Illinois implementation. Please respond carefully and completely, as the answers to the program narrative as this local plan will guide and inform program implementation both through the grant period and beyond. The sections of the program narrative are a summary of the program. This is a 1 to 2 page description that encapsulates the key aspects of the proposal. A description of the geographic service area, statement of the problem, both the current situation and what the unmet needs are, a list of key partners, and then the project implementation plan or the description of the proposed ARI program model or models. And this will focus on target population, target intervention, a statement of impact on the system, the logic model, and an implementation schedule. There's also a performance measurement section with goals, objectives, and metrics, a calculation of cost effectiveness, an acknowledgement of certification for problem-solving courts through the Administrative Office of the Illinois Courts, if applicable, and budget detail and budget narrative. So one of the required elements, as we mentioned, is the logic model. A logic model is a key tool that we feel will be useful for both internal purposes and external purposes. A logic model is a simple and straightforward visualization of how you intend to achieve your outcomes based on the investments that you plan to make. The inputs, which are personnel, finances, and other resources that are invested, which would include the ARI grant. Activities, this would be how those funds are invested in order to provide services, who is participating, who the target population is, and then the short, medium, and long-term expected outcomes. There also is a section for assumptions and external factors to acknowledge that you're operating as part of a larger system. So the local plan should start with a description of the geographic service area, and then a clear, strong statement of the problem that the proposal intends to solve. For this ARI NOFO, the problem is people being sent to prison, oftentimes because there's not enough resources in the community to rehabilitate and safely supervise them. In the program narrative, you are asked to complete a table, shown here, using data provided by CJA about who has been going to prison from your jurisdiction over the past 3 years, who would have been eligible for probation, and for what types of offenses. So every year, CJA research staff analyze IDOC commitment data and prepare these eligibility tables. These data are used not only for defining the statement of problem, as we discussed, but also for identifying the target population for your program. Data are available by county, offense class, and offense type for the past 3 years. These data are available at the ARI website under the Grants tab. Here are is a screenshot of some of the columns of the eligibility tables. You'll see that they're sorted by county, and they have a 3-year average of eligible offenses for an ARI program. These would be probation eligible offenses that may be eligible or may not be eligible depending on criminal history. So that's the difference between the two rightmost columns. Here is one of the other tabs that's available with a breakdown by county of these numbers of eligible offenses by class offense class and offense type. All of these data and tables are sortable by both judicial circuit and by county. So the target population is where you'll be looking at the individuals who are currently going to prison but who are eligible for probation. And when you look at these tables, local stakeholders will likely see trends that could be addressed by investing in community resources, such as behavioral health therapies, substance use disorder treatment tracks, and other wraparound services, as well as smaller probation caseloads. Any probation eligible offense, as listed in the tables, is allowable for ARI participation based on the Crime Reduction Act. Individuals should be prison bound, whereas their diversion would represent a savings to the state. And the local jurisdiction can choose to work with the total eligible population or a well-defined and measurable subset. When looking at a subset or when the population in general for the target, jurisdictions should take into account that these principals, we know that they understand their local needs and they're best situated to identify their target populations and design their ARI program models. The selected target population should result in the greatest possible number of individuals diverted from state prisons while preserving public safety. Here are some examples of target population calculations. If a jurisdiction intended to work with the entire total eligible population, including the maybe eligible population, and that number was 110, the reduction goal that would be part of the contract, as noted earlier, would be 28 individuals. If instead the jurisdiction wanted to concentrate only on the Class 3 and 4 populations, and this number was 80, the contractual reduction goal would be 20. Further, if the jurisdiction felt that they wanted to focus on the low-level offenders with substance use disorders, estimated at 50% of the Class 3s and 4s, and that target population would be 40, the reduction goal would be 10. Calculations like this would be done for all 3 years of the program if you worked, and then averaged together if you worked with the individual class types or class offenses. So the reduction goal and reimbursement provision or penalty, we mentioned that sites must agree to reduce by 25% the number of people sent to the Department of Corrections. The progress towards this reduction goal is measured in terms of the number of diversions or enrollments in the program in lieu of incarceration. So if your target population was 40 and your 25% reduction goal was 10, in order to be compliant towards the reduction goal, we would expect that a program would enroll at least 10 people in lieu of incarceration over the grant period. If a site is found to be at risk of not meeting the reduction goal, there's a variety of corrective action processes that can take place. And the penalty is at the discretion and direction of the Adult Redeploy Oversight Board, currently capped at half of the marginal cost of imprisonment. So based on the target population that's identified, a target intervention will be proposed through this Notice of Funding Opportunity. Any type of program model, intervention, or combination that's aligned with the goals of Adult Redeploy and based in or informed by evidence in reducing recidivism is allowable for proposal. These may include problem-solving courts, which must be certified through the Administrative Office of the Illinois Courts, an intensive supervision probation program that's combined with services that address the criminogenic needs of those in the program, and any system enhancements or additional supports. Innovation and experimentation are encouraged. Regardless of the type of program model, each site is expected to abide by the 8 guiding principles of effective interventions. There should be an inclusion of an assessment of risk, needs, and assets, a plan to enhance intrinsic motivation by the use of contingency management, incentives, sanctions, and therapeutic adjustments. The intervention should be targeted according to the assessments by risk, need, and responsivity. The plan should involve skill training with directed practice, such as cognitive behavioral therapy models, as done or performed by well-trained staff in these therapies. Positive reinforcement should be a key part of what's done, as well as motivational interviewing. Ongoing support in the community should be engaged in order to support the efforts of the individual. All relevant process and practices should be measured and part of a feedback loop to ensure effectiveness and course corrections upon lessons learned. So as was mentioned, performance measurement is very key. A according to the Crime Reduction Act and to Adult Redeploy Illinois. All sites must submit quarterly progress reports that reflect progress towards their objectives and provide individual data through a database uploaded through a secure server. Sites must also agree to participate in any required external evaluations. So we acknowledge that partnerships and multidisciplinary partnerships are key to a successful program, and as part of the application, jurisdictions are required to include a listing of the types of individuals involved and their roles in the development and implementation of the program. Furthermore, we request letters of support from the following stakeholders: Chief Judge or the presiding criminal court judge, State's Attorney, Public Defender, and the Head of Probation or Court Services. Again, regardless of the type of program intervention that is proposed, these should all represent substantial savings compared to the cost of incarceration. And these calculations are part of the application based on the total budget divided by the service goal and divided by the reduction goal. Currently, the cost effectiveness cap is $15,000 per person. So you'd expect that any intervention would cost $15,000 or less. And this is roughly half the cost of incarceration. Also, a significant part of the application is the budget and budget narrative, and these will be completed using fillable Excel-based template and forms provided by CJA. Some of the allowable expenses that we would expect to see in response to this notice of funding opportunity are along the lines of personnel, training, program supplies such as drug testing supplies, behavioral health services and treatment, as well as wraparound services for participants that can aid in their success on probation, transportation assistance, housing assistance, incentives. And because there is a rigorous performance measurement component to Adult Redeploy, also allowable expenses include data collection and analysis and program evaluation. All expenses must be reasonable, necessary, and allocable to the program.
Here is a look at the timeline for this notice of funding opportunity. The NOFO was posted on February 27, 2020. This technical assistance recording was made available on March 3, 2020. The notice of intent is due on March 23, 2020. The last date to submit questions regarding this NOFO is March 26, 2020. Applications are due no later than 11:59 p.m. on March 31, 2020. We're scheduled to meet with the ARI Oversight Board for the review and approval of recommended funding designations on May 18, 2020. And the program will start on July 1st, 2020. So here's a list of all the items that are required before submitting your application. Please be sure to obtain a DUNS number or a Data Universal Numbering System number. Please register with the System for Award Management at sam.gov. Please apply for, update, or verify the employer identification number. Create a grants.gov account with a username and password. And lastly, complete registration in the Grantee GATA portal. And within the Grantee GATA portal, be sure to complete the most recent internal controls questionnaire. Here is the required application formatting. The program narrative should be single-space with 12-point Times New Roman font with 1-inch margins, and please do not exceed 20 pages. All applicants are expected to use person-centered language, using references to people, individuals, clients, and participants versus offenders or felons. PCL reduces the stigmatization that is counter to rehabilitation and reintegration goals. Here is the submission checklist. Please submit the uniform application for state grant assistance in a PDF version and in a Microsoft Word file. The program narrative is also required. Please do not change the format of this document and submit this document in the Word file. The budget and budget narrative is one Excel file. Please submit this in Excel format, and no signatures are required at the moment for the budget. The logic model should be submitted in the Word file, and letters of support should be submitted in the PDF. All required application materials must be emailed to cja.adultredeploynofo@illinois.gov no later than 11:59 p.m. on March 31st, 2020. Proposals will not be accepted by mail, fax, or in person. Incomplete applications or those sent to another email address will not be reviewed. Late submissions will not be reviewed. Here's a look at the review process. So first, ARI and/or ICEJA staff will screen the applications for eligibility. Everyone that passes the eligibility will be passed down to an expert panel for review and scoring. From there, the Site Selection and Monitoring Committee will review and develop funding recommendations. And finally, the Adult Redeploy Illinois Oversight Board will review and approve those designations.
So we wanted to provide you with some additional resources that may be helpful as you're going through this application process. First is the ARI website at cja.illinois.gov/adultredeploy. And if you go to the Grants tab, you'll find the application information and the eligibility tables. Also on the Apps tab, which is new to our updated website, there are links to data sets, including arrest and crime trends, as well as two continuums that talk about evidence-based and evidence-informed interventions for people with substance use and mental health disorders. On the CJA website, there is a new research hub that provides a variety of articles, data sets, apps, and research reports that would be useful if looking at different ways to effectively reduce recidivism and work with different populations. Also, the GATA page includes a list of webinars, including one on program goals, objectives, and performance indicators, as well as a series on budgets and logic models. So questions regarding this NOFO may be submitted to cja.adultredeploynofo@illinois.gov until 11:59 p.m. on March 26, 2020. All questions and responses will be posted on the GATA page for everybody to benefit from the information that is being shared. Contact information is for Stacy, and she can be reached at the cja.adultredeploynofo@illinois.gov email address. Thank you and good luck.